night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. You see an empty tomb. Oh, so when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Come on, you sing. Nothing can stand against the power. Yeah. You shine like, not like a shadow. Come on, sing. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows. You win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Oh, so when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Yeah. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. Yeah, I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven comes to fight for me. Oh, yeah. Oh, we sing. We're gonna sing a little louder.
Sing a little louder,
Sing a little louder.
sing a little louder,
Gonna sing a little louder. to second guessing. You can have my yes. I'm giving you my fear of never knowing whatever's coming next. I know you got me. You can have my yes. You're the lamp, you're the light, you're the cloud that guides me. You're the way, you're the truth, you're the life inside me. You conquered my fears, so I'll leave it all behind. I'll run into the light. I'm giving you my dreams and my ambitions. Your presence is my prize and my provision. I'll answer when you ask. Oh, who could come against if you are for me? 'Cause even in the fire, I know you got me. I'm giving you my yes again. You're the lamp, you're the light, you're the path that guides me. You're the way, you're the truth, you're the life inside me. You conquered my fears, so I'll leave it all behind. I'll run into the light. Yeah. Wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. Wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. Wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. I'll follow you. We say, oh, wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. Wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow. Oh, wherever you are, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. I'll follow you. Yeah. You're the lamp, you're the light, you're the cloud that guides me. You're the way, you're the truth, you're the life inside me. You conquered my fears, so I'll leave it all behind. Oh, I'll run into the light. Yeah, oh, I'll run into the light. Oh, I'll leave it all behind. I'll run into the light.
Well, happy birthday, America! What do you think? That's the way we should start the 4th of July. Happy 4th of July, everybody. So glad that you guys chose to be with us on this holiday. And I joked last service, and I don't think people thought it was funny, but we really wondered, like, do people come to church on the 4th of July? And you know what? You proved us wrong because we weren't really sure who was going to be here today. And you guys are all here, and we're so glad. So my name's Kim, and I am part of this crazy Orion team around here, and we really are thrilled that you chose to be with us today as we celebrate this great country. We got some crazy stuff going on around here, as we always do. Some fun things we want to make you aware of. The first one is the Hope Water 5K. Has anybody here participated in Hope Water before? Yes. I love you crazy people. I'm one of you crazy people. Anyway, we have a great event coming up the 31st. It's our 5K run. You can walk, you can crawl, you can push a stroller, you can drag a dog. There are no rules, but we would love for you to come out and be a part of this day and raise some money for putting in wells in Kenya. It's an awesome project right there. The next thing we have coming up is there's a baptism opportunity. So if anybody is feeling like it is their time, we are doing baptisms during the Troy midweek. So I don't have a slide for this one, but if anybody has questions and feels like now's their time, come and chat with us at the hub after service, or you can go to kensingtonchurch.org/baptism, and it'll give you all of the information. The next thing that is coming up is Rock Your Family. Do we have some Rock Your Family people out there? Nice. I see you. So, Rock Your Family is back this year. And if you have not participated in the past, it is just a great opportunity for you, your family, to come together with other families. There is great teaching, there is great fun, great games, but just a really great time of community and connection. So, you can check all of that out online as well. And we are jumping into a new series today. And it is called Shaking the Family Tree. So, I don't know about you guys, but how many of you have dug into your ancestry at all? Like 23andMe or Ancestry.com. Ooh, yeah, I see some of you out there. Did anybody find anything that you were kind of like, didn't know that was part of my family, right? I did. Actually, I think for most of my family, I was the one that they were like, really? She's part of my family? But we are diving into that today and what that looks like, and really the ancestry of Jesus, which is super cool. Ryan Morrill is here with us today and going to be giving the message. He crushed it first service. You guys are in for a treat. But before we dive into the message, we have a little video that kind of dives into the ancestry piece, and so sometimes it doesn't always look exactly like we thought it might. So enjoy the day. Happy 4th of July.
Okay, I believe it's over here somewhere.
Smells kind of funny, Grandpa.
Well, old things have a tendency to do that.
Wow, that's cool.
You're asking about our family, our ancestors.
I asked Dad, but he didn't seem to remember a whole lot.
I'm surprised. I'm pretty sure I showed him this stuff to him many times. There's a lot of old stories here.
Who are these people?
Well, let me see. This is from World War II. You see this man sitting right here?
Yeah, who is he?
That's your great-great-uncle Roy. Ever heard of him?
No, what did he do?
He was a pigeoneer.
What?
He trained carrier pigeons to carry important messages to the soldiers in the Navy.
What kind of messages?
Oh, important ones about enemy submarines. But one day, Roy made a mistake. Instead of attaching an important piece of intel to the carrier pigeon, he attached a recipe for Spam salad.
What happened?
Well, let's just say I hope they could swim well.
This is so cool.
Let's see. This is a World War I victory medal in Siberia. This was given to your great-great-great-grandfather, Wendell.
Isn't Siberia a long, long way from here?
Cold, too. Wendell was, he was a bit odd. He went to Siberia by accident, got on the wrong boat. He thought he was headed to Greece to press his own olive oil.
That's weird.
That was Wendell.
What's a patent?
A patent is something you get when you invent something. Your great-aunt Molly was an inventor.
What did she invent?
It says the car exhaust grill.
What's a lawsuit?
That's what you get when you invent the car exhaust grill.
The Titanic?
That would have been Arthur.
The Chicago Fire?
That was Bernice.
Little Bighorn?
That was George.
What's a Watergate?
You know what? Grandpa needs a nap. Besides, I'm pretty sure you're bored with looking at all these smelly old things. We can continue this in some other time, like in 30 or 40 years.
Won't you be dead by then?
God willing.
Who's Benedict Arnold?
Wow, there's a lot of history in that chest, that's for sure. So, happy 4th of July to everyone. As Kim said, my name is Ryan, and I appreciate that video. If you have dug into your family's past, I'm sure there are things in your family's past that you are honored and proud of, and I'm sure there are things, too, that you might want to gloss over. 17 years ago now, at the birth of our eldest son, my father got nostalgic, I think, because he kind of recognized the whole generation to generation thing that was happening in our life. And he dug in and wanted to research our ancestry as the Morrill family name. And it's one of those things, if you ever do this, it's like a rabbit hole. Like, you go down in it and it can consume you. And it consumed him.
And he came out of that hole, literally, as my son was born, there was a document he handed. People get diapers and, onesies, and my dad hands me this beautiful document of the family tree, which meant so much to me. And I was able to look at it and go through it, and it was crazy because our family history, he was able to go all the way back to the 1400s in England for the Morrill family name, and how in 1620, there was a journey across the ocean to the Americas. If you know anything about what happened in 1620, that was roughly the time when the Mayflower did its maiden voyage across the ocean. And so I was drawing some lines, some hopeful lines, and thinking, yeah, maybe one of my descendants was actually on the Mayflower. And I kind of came to believe that in my own head and hope that with all my might in my own head. And then one day, and I walked around with that. It was just like a badge of honor for me. And one day, several months later, 6 months later, I'm talking to my dad, and somehow we come up about that specific fact. And he says, oh, yeah, that. Just disregard that. Didn't happen at all. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, in fact, pretty much 2/3 of the whole family tree from just a couple grandfathers ago, you can pretty much just toss the whole thing out. I'm like, what? He's like, well, I zigged when I should have zagged. A name that I thought was a name wasn't actually a name, and so I've got to start all again from scratch. So I was like, oh my goodness. And I didn't know if he'd ever do it again, but he did actually about 15 years later, just a few years ago, 2019, he sent me an email with an attached document, and he had redone the whole thing. And this time, he is fairly certain that this is all correct. And there's some great little tidbits, some wonderful things in there. On my mother's side, I have a great-great-great-great-great-grandfather who fought in the Revolutionary War. If you know anything about Revolutionary War history, he fought under General Horatio Gates, which is a big name. I've had a couple other grandfathers that fought in the Civil War as well on the Union side. And then I also have a great-great-great-grandfather on my mother's side as well, whose name is George Nixon II. Now, his son, George Nixon III, fought at Gettysburg. And he was wounded on the second day of the Gettysburg battle. There are 3 days of battle that took place there on Cemetery Ridge, if you know anything about that. And he was wounded, and actually that wound actually led to his death several days later. But that man, George Nixon III, had a great grandson by the name of Richard Milhous Nixon, who was our 37th president of the United States. So it all happened, it's true. I cannot tell a lie at all about that. And so I always knew there was something important in our history of presidential roots, and very proud of that, and it has opened absolutely zero doors for me in this world, unfortunately. So anyway, today we are going to dive into genealogy, and it's crazy, like, okay, wow, that's really just crazy, wonderful topic, but there's some incredible things that open up to us if you really look at this. And it's interesting how Matthew, the author of the book, first book of the New Testament, begins with a genealogy. It's the first chapter of Matthew. Why would he do that? And, a lot of people will open up, think, wow, I'm going to read the Bible. This is going to be great. They open to Matthew, and it's just a bunch of names. And it can be a buzzkill really fast. But Matthew actually has some goals in it. And as I read this, one of the things I want to just share with you too, thank you for those that give to Kensington. For those of you that are here with us, those of you that are online as well, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate so much. There's several ways that you can give as well. If you haven't done that yet or you've been doing it over and over, you can text, right? The message prompts up there, 77977, texting Kensington. You can go to the Kensington app in less than 10 seconds and you can give online. And if you're here in person today, you can write checks, and I believe that you can drop those outside of the door on your way. And thank you so much for your partnership. Thank you for your faithfulness, just even being here today with us, whether in person or online as well. It means so much. So I'm going to read the first passage of Matthew, just some names. I'm not going to read the whole genealogy, but just a few things that jump out. So follow along with me. It's up on the screen. It says this: "This is the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, Judah the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar, Perez the father of Hezron, Hezron the father of Ram, and Jacob the father of Joseph. Joseph was the husband of Mary, and Mary was the mother of Jesus, who is called the Messiah." Some recognizable names start to pop up there at the end of that passage for us. And what Matthew is doing as he begins to share all these names, and there's many more that I'm not going to list here. We'll read a couple of those as we go further along. But what Matthew is trying to bring to the Jewish reader, the Israelite reader that is opening this text for the first time, is he's trying to let them know that this is not a work of fiction. This is not some fairy tale that exists out there that we're just trying to make up. He's trying to connect them to their story. He's trying to connect them to their culture and to their history as well. He brings up the name Abraham, where it all began generations and generations ago. And he connects in David. This is the same David that killed Goliath, right? The King David. And whereas Abraham maybe connects to the head of so many people, David connects to the heart because people loved their king. Even though all of his flaws, they loved their king and the royalty that came with that. He also does something that is very unconventional, and he lists several women in this passage as well, which is not something that a reader would actually see. They would not see the names of women at this time in that culture. So he mentions a few names that are in there, and not only does he mention women, but he mentions some women who are tainted in scandal. One of the names was Tamar that was mentioned in there. You would think that all the names that would be listed in the genealogy of Jesus would have their acts together, would be godly people, but Tamar was a prostitute, yet God used her in this entire story. We also hear about Mary, the mother of Jesus. Again, scandal surrounding this woman as people are still grappling with the fact that she was an unwed mother. And he's tying all this together. And what he's basically saying is that Matthew wants people to see that God uses all types of people, no matter what they've done, no matter where they've been, race or gender. He's bringing in all types of people, and it's a beautiful portrait of an all-inclusive and all-expanding God. So over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be diving into the stories of 4 women. These 4 women that are mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus. Who they are, what we can learn from their stories. We're going to see how the gospel of message of redemption and love and acceptance by God for all people is beautifully woven throughout their lives. And so to start, we're going to talk about a woman named Ruth, okay? Ruth, which is found in Matthew 1:5. This is what it says up there. It says, Salmon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab, Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Now, Ruth is mentioned in this passage in Matthew, and Ruth is also mentioned in, she has a book that's named after her in the Old Testament. There are only 2 books in the entire Bible that are named after women. Ruth is one of them. Does anybody know the second one? Esther. Excellent. Good job. Esther is the other one. Only 2 books, which is crazy to think of. It's found at the beginning of the Old Testament, roughly after Judges, before 1 Samuel. And it's a short book as well, only 4 chapters. And I recommend after today, this week, that you read those 4 chapters. I think knowing some of the story now, you'll be able to really connect with it. So this is how it begins. It begins with a woman named Naomi, okay? And Naomi is married to a man named Elimelech. Elimelech, everybody say that with me, Elimelech. Elimelech, it's a tough one to say, but that was her husband. And they lived in Bethlehem in Israel. And life was tough. Things were not going well. The conditions were not right. I'm sure they were in poverty. They were hungry. And yet life in another community, another nation named Moab, which is down to the south and to the east of them, things were better. And word got out that things were better. Now, Moab is actually sort of an enemy nation. It's not a place that people would gladly go to. It's not a place that people necessarily get along. So they were taking a big risk. Things must have been pretty bad in Bethlehem for them to go to Moab. So they go there. And as they get there, they have 2 sons, okay? First one is Mahlon, and the other is Kilion. Mahlon and Kilion, okay? And they're raising these 2 boys. And then Elimelech, the father, Naomi's husband, dies. And she's left as a widow. And she's left to raise these 2 boys through their teen years, into their teen years, whatever age they are, they end up getting married. And they marry 2 Moabite women, okay? Mahlon marries one, Kilion marries the other. Ruth and Orpah, not Oprah, Orpah, okay? It's really easy to switch those letters around as you look at this, okay? Ruth and Orpah are the 2 women. And so they get married to these 2 men, Mahlon and Kilion, and lo and behold, those 2 guys die. So bad luck for this family, right? The men do not live long. in Naomi's close family. And so she's left. It's Naomi and then Ruth and Orpah. All are left together. They're all widows. And to be a widow is a tough thing. And so they cling together. They cling to life together just for survival purposes. And they start journeying through life. And one of the things they realize is that life begins to be tough for them in Moab. And Naomi begins to hear that life is actually better back in her homeland in Bethlehem. And so what she says to these two women, who, by the way, were born and raised in Moab, they were Moabites, she convinces them to go with her because life is now better back in Bethlehem. There are crops, there is food for them to survive. And so they start making the journey along the road all the way back to Bethlehem. And along the way, Naomi has this realization that for these two Moabite women to come to Bethlehem, come back to the nation of Israel, widowed, with the story and the hatred that goes against that nation in Israel, to come back to that nation could be a very bad thing for them. And it could go poorly for them. And so she turns to the women and she discourages them from continuing any longer in the journey. And Orpah listens. Orpah says, okay, thank you very much. She wanted to bail. She didn't want to be with her mother-in-law, maybe. She wanted to head back. So she heads home. But Ruth decides to stay. And this is where we get the first theme today in regards to Ruth's life, which is loyalty. And I want you to listen to this passage. Listen to the devotion and the loyalty that follows from Ruth, that Ruth gives to this woman. Again, her mother-in-law. Think about this. Here we go. She says this. Ruth replied, after, again, Naomi's urging her to go back. Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." And when Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. "Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me ever so severely if death separates you and me." Imagine, wives in the room, saying that to your mother-in-law. Imagine the devotion and what this woman is committing to right in that moment in time. And when you read this, it begs the question, first of all, you have to ask yourself, is there anyone in my life that could say this to me? Is there anyone in my life that can be a Ruth to me, that would show me this devotion and this loyalty? And I hope you can think of at least one name. But I would be willing to bet there's many of us in this room that would struggle to come up with that name that would show this kind of devotion. The other question that it begs, and maybe the more important question is there anyone that I can show this loyalty or that I am showing this loyalty and devotion to? Is there at least one person? If there's more than one, two or three, that's amazing. But is there at least one? And I'll say this, the more important thing is that we are living out Ruth's story, Ruth's loyalty to other people. I'm fortunate enough, I'm coming up this Labor Day weekend, just 2 months from now, on my 25th anniversary here at Kensington. I've been here 25 years, a quarter of a century, which is mind-blowing to think of that when I came here. And thank you. I'm saying that partly, well, one, it makes me feel really much older than when I got here. And I came here, I drove across the United States from Colorado, stopping in Missouri where I went to college. And I came here, I thought I'd be here for a year. And 25 years later, here I am still, which is amazing. And God has done so much in my life and my family as well as a result of it. But shortly after I got here, I came here to be a middle school director. Breakaway was the program. That's the name of the program still that is here. And I came here to take that job. And I was encouraged to meet with a young man, just my age, basically a few years older than me, who had been volunteering and encouraged to meet with him and see if he would join my team. And so we met, his name is Frank, and we met at a Taco Bell in Farmington Hills. Farmington Hills, again, 25 years ago this September. And I sat across from him, and little did I realize at that moment in time that I was sitting across from the greatest friendship that a person could ever want. A friendship that would change my life, that would support me, that would rescue me at times, that would minister to me, that would counsel me, that would love my children, would be there for my wife in times of trial. And he's been the greatest friend and has shown the most incredible loyalty and devotion to me that I could have ever wanted. He is my Ruth. And as good of a Ruth that he is to me, I am trying to be a good Ruth back to him. And it's only through the grace and the mercy of Jesus that we can do anything similar to what Ruth did. Because to try and be a great friend, to try and be a very loyal person, strain and tension and mistakes and sin will enter into it, and we will continually want to walk the other way. But God has shown incredible mercy through our relationship, and we try so much to be each other's Ruths in the story, and I think he does a way better job at it than I do. And he's not a perfect man. There are many things in his life that he would love to change, but as far as loyalty to me, I am so thankful, and it has changed the trajectory of my life and the legacy of my life as well. And that's what I want to talk about here in just a minute. I'll say this, though the future was unknown and bleak, Ruth showed courageous and extraordinary love and loyalty to Naomi by leaving her homeland for somewhere foreign. She could have easily opted out. She was no longer legally tied to Naomi's family, and it would have been so much easier for Ruth to start over again in Moab, her homeland. But she decided to do what was best for someone else. She took her eyes off herself and put another person first. And that's so difficult to do. And I hope we can learn from her story today the importance of doing that in life. The second thing that we take away from Ruth's story, the first is loyalty. The second is in regard to legacy. Legacy. And I'll just say this, I do a lot of funerals. There's a funeral home that calls me up every so often and asks me to come over and help when people don't have a church home that they're a part of. So I get to jump in and I get to hear people's stories. Sometimes they've been a part of, Jesus has been a part of their journey. Sometimes it is not. But I go through, and one of the things that I always ask each family member, because I'm meeting usually with a family member of the deceased, I always ask the question, tell me their legacy. Tell me something that lives on in you and the rest of the family because of the way this person lived. And good funerals, the funerals that I love to do, it's hard to shut them up because they will start talking about what lives in them, what the other person has passed down to them because of their love, their loyalty, whatever things they have done in life, how that legacy lives on. And then there's the bad funerals where the person sits there silent and there's nothing to say. And those are incredibly tough to do. You have to do a lot of spiritual gymnastics in those funerals to try to get through them, to make this person and this ceremony work for everybody. It's a very challenging thing to do. There's a legacy that is left by Ruth. Let's just share it. It says, they arrived in Bethlehem husbandless, both Ruth and Naomi. And all they have to do is cling to each other. Now, the normal process would be for the matron of the family to go out and try to find some way to support the two of them. It would be Naomi's job to go out. But Ruth wants to go and take the initiative. And she jumps out and she goes to find work. She goes to find food in the fields. And this is what we read in Ruth 2:3. It says, so she went out, entered a field, and began to glean behind the harvesters. Now, what Israelite law demands is that a crop, an entire harvest, the corners of the field would be left unharvested. So picture a big row of crops. The corners of each of that square would be left unharvested. And the food, whatever food fell, be it corn, grain, whatever it is that fell down to the ground, would be then available for the poor to come in and glean, to take for themselves. This was a law, all right? So this is what we read in Ruth 2:3, and that's called gleaning, by the way. In Ruth 2:3, it says, as it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. I asked you to say the word Elimelech earlier. Elimelech is connected to Naomi's husband, all right, to Ruth's father-in-law. He's part of their clan, part of their family in some way. Now we know this. Boaz is single, he's kind, he's a rich landowner, and he shows up and sees Ruth working, and he insists that she only glean from his field, all right? He likes something about Ruth, and this guy's got his act together. He's a catch, okay? He's the kind of guy that you'd see showing up on The Bachelor, all right, if they had one back in that time. And this is what we read about Boaz, or what Boaz, his interaction with Ruth in chapter 2. It says this: "So Boaz said to Ruth, 'My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting, and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled.' At this she bowed down with her face to the ground, and she asked him, 'Why have I found such favor in your eyes, that you notice me, a foreigner?' And Boaz replied, 'I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you have left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done.'" And this is where the legacy really kicks in right here. He says, "May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. May you be richly rewarded." Now, as I jump into that, I just fast forward just for a split second. Naomi sees Boaz as this incredible catch. Again, mother-in-law sees this man as an incredible catch. She feels that she's too old. She sees Ruth as a beautiful young, now single woman, and she thinks this is a match made perfectly together, a match made in heaven. And so she encourages them to get together. She plays Match.com just a little bit, and boom, they fall in love, and they get married. Okay, they get married, and this is what we read in Ruth at the very end of Ruth. Ruth 4:21, verse 22. A little genealogy right here. It says, "Salmon, the father of Boaz, Boaz the father of Obed, Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David." So if you think about that, Ruth was the great-great-grandmother of King David. Great-great-grandmother of King David. And if you really want to draw that out, if you go back to the very beginning, she was the grandmother to the 29th power of Jesus. Her legacy lived on way beyond her life. Hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of years. I don't know the exact timeline if you drew that all out. I'm sure it's in the thousands of years. And it was something she could not see. It was something that she could not experience. And I'm sure it was not anything that she dreamed of at all. But all she was doing at the moment in time was she's being loyal, she was being faithful, she was being obedient, and she was showing love to this woman that she felt called to show love to. And because of that, her legacy lives on 29 plus generations later to change the history of the world because of this woman's decision to be faithful and loyal and show love. Now, I think about my life, and I don't think there's anything incredible about me in particular. I don't think I have any incredible talent. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I don't think I'm going to be a person you're going to read about in the history books hundreds of years ago. At least after all the years I've lived so far, there's nothing that would be noted in those. And it's easy to kind of think, yeah, I just kind of blend in. There's nothing amazing here. And I'm sure some of you feel that way as well. Like, yeah, there's just a lot of mundane and just normal, average things in my life. But here's what I know is that it's not about the here and now. It's about the next generation to come. It's about the fact that I've got 3 boys that are watching how I live and seeing the way that I treat other people, seeing the way that I treat their mother, seeing how I love, seeing how I give, seeing how I serve. It's about other generations seeing things in me as well. And it's things that I'll never be complimented on. It's things that no one will ever come up to me and hand me a trophy for, or you'll ever see splashed across a headline. It's just subtle, under the radar things that I just try to do in my life to be obedient and to be a follower and faithful person of Jesus, because that's what he has called me to do. And my hope and my prayer is that because of that, there will be, as we just heard with Ruth in just the past passage, that there will be a rich reward by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings I have come to take refuge. And I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. I don't think I'm going to see this happen. And so for you in this room, How are you living your life today in love, in faithfulness, in loyalty? And knowing that it's not about your here and now. It's not about your comfort. It's not about your earthly success. Because what you are doing is you're setting up life for another generation. And that your story could be told hundreds and hundreds of years from now because of something you did here today that nobody else noticed. Andy Stanley, I didn't share this last time, but Andy Stanley, a pastor in the area, has this quote. It says this: your greatest contribution to the kingdom of God may not be something you do, but someone you raise. Every parent in the room, I hope that strikes a chord in your heart. Your greatest contribution to the kingdom of God may not be something you do, but someone you raise. I'm gonna add on to that. Your greatest contribution to the kingdom of God may not be something you do, but someone you care for, someone you inspire, someone you forgive, someone you serve. And that act of devotion, that act of love can change the history for all mankind. It can change the history for a family, a community, a society, you name it. You don't know. So because we don't know, we are obedient to Jesus and we follow and we love. Philippians 1:6 says, and I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. He who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. Doesn't say that you're gonna see the completion. Doesn't mean you're going to experience it. Doesn't mean you're gonna be like, yep, there it is. Odds are you'll never know. But you are part of a story. You are part of a family tree that is growing out from you. And whether they're your blood or they're your friendships or they're your neighbors or your coworkers, you are part of that tree with your impact. So Ruth showed loyalty. She brought legacy. She cared for others, and it impacted legacy. And the final thing that we take away from this story of Ruth is the importance of love. And what we read in Ruth is a different kind of love. It's a Hebrew word that's called hesed. H-E-S-E-D. Say it with me, hesed. Hesed. And this is a different form of love. It's hard to translate in the English language, but range of meanings could be covenant loyalty, mercy, faithfulness, goodness, graciousness, kindness, and everlasting love, just to name a few of them. It is a costly brand of love that involves going above and beyond what anyone has a right to ask or expect. It is a beautiful picture of a love that is loyal and steadfast and unending. And Ruth showed hesed love time and time again. As I've said multiple times, she left the only home she had ever known and willingly embraces a vulnerable position in a strange land in order to love her mother-in-law. She was someone who decided that against all odds, she would remain loyal and faithful. She was hardworking, loving, kind, and brave. Wherever she went or whatever she did, her character remained the same. And she showed extravagant love to Naomi. And she always put Naomi's best interest ahead of herself. And she continually lived out hesed. And hesed love is mentioned time and time again in the Old Testament. And hesed love is a perfect example, a perfect word to summarize God's love and his feeling for each of us. This is what we read in Psalm 117, verse 2. It says, for great is his steadfast or hesed love toward us. And the faithfulness of the Lord endures forever. In Isaiah 54:10, we read, for the mountains may depart and the hills be removed, but my steadfast love shall not depart from you. Again, my hesed love shall not depart from you, and my covenant of peace shall not be removed, says the Lord, who has compassion on you. When I do these funerals, the other question I always ask or think about is I try to gather how this person loved. And at the end of it all, for each of us in this room, what people are going to talk about when we go, we're all going to go. There's going to be a funeral of some sort for every single one of us in this room. What is going to be said about each of us is not about the accomplishments that we had or the titles. It's not going to be about the amount of money in our bank account. Nobody talks about that at a funeral. It's not going to be about the nice possessions that you had. What is going to get talked about is hesed love. How you showed hesed love to others. And as I said before, there are funerals that I do where they can't stop sharing examples of hesed love. And those are the best ones to do. In fact, if I had to do Ruth's funeral, this would be one of those glorious, wonderful, easy, slam dunk funerals. I take it every time. But again, sometimes I don't. Because the person that I'm doing it for wasn't thinking about many other people than themselves. What gets talked about when we're gone is how we loved others. Period, end of story. We had 2 years ago now, this last month in June 2019, we underwent a renovation in our house. And we were gonna do a lot of things to it. We were gonna kind of redo some rooms, put up some, make one room a little smaller, another room bigger. We're gonna turn a bathroom, shape it another way. We're gonna create a door and redo an entire hallway. We were gonna redo all of the floors in the house as well. And somehow we lived in this illusion that we could actually live in our house through the renovation. If anybody's done a reservation, you know that I was smoking something, trying to think that I was gonna be able to do this, right? And so, I can still remember, it's the Monday after Father's Day where it all started, and I was at work, and the renovation team came in, the demo guys, right? Chip Gaines showed up with his whole crew of guys and just started taking the sledgehammer to the walls, right? And it's just going down, and my wife texts me halfway through the morning, and she says, "This is insane," right? And I'm sure it is, it's so great, I'm so glad we're doing this. And an hour later, I sensed the tension that was boiling up in my wife, And she texts me, she says, "I don't think we're gonna be able to stay here through the renovation." I was like, "Oh, whatever, of course we're gonna be able, I'll be home in a couple hours, let me just see what's going on." So drive home, get out of my car, 8 cars are on our street. I walk in, there's what sounds like jackhammers going off in the house. There's dust, I can't see the other side of the wall in the room I'm in. And I came to this brilliant realization that we're not gonna be able to stay in our house, right? And panic really starts to settle in because we don't have a great plan B put in place. And I walk outside and we both look at each other and we knew exactly what we needed to do. And I picked up the phone and I called Doug and Joyce. And I think we have a picture up here of Doug and Joyce. I've known them from 25 years ago when I first moved here. Joyce is down on the bottom right. Doug is above her there in the beard. And known them, if you can leave the picture up just for a few minutes. I met them because they had children that were in Breakaway, in the middle school program when I started here. And I picked up the phone and I said, and I think Joyce answered, I said, "Hey, that renovation we're going under?" She's like, yeah. And I said, "Well, it's a little more involved than we thought, and we don't think we can stay here tonight. Can we come over to your house until we figure out plan B?" She said, "Come on over to our house. Get here as fast as you can." So we packed up that afternoon, got everything over to the house. We walk in, there is dinner sitting on the table. There are towels out for us in the bathroom. This is me, and at the time I think we had a 7-year-old, 2 teenagers, mind you. She's welcoming 2 teenage boys into her house. Beds are made, ready to go. And the line was, "Stay as long as you need." I'm like, really? As long as you need. As long as you need. So one night turned into several nights, which soon enough we thought would just be another week or two, which turned into 2.5 months of living in their basement. And they showed us Hesed love like you could not imagine. From the amount of meals that were made for us, to the counsel that they gave to us, because there were nights where we were in tears as parents. If you're a parent of a teenager, you know those nights. We're in tears sitting at the table with them, to caring for our children, helping run things around, loaning us their cars. It was a love that went above and beyond what anyone would expect or could ever ask of anyone else. And the only reason they could do that, the only reason they could share this Hesed love with us, is because they have experienced this Hesed love from God the Father. They know him, they understand him, they have received his grace and mercy into their life, and they understand what it means to give that back and to share it back. And the only way they can do it as well, because nobody's perfect. We were gonna get on their nerves, right? Benjamin Franklin said, "Fish and guests stink after 3 days." And we stunk. But it was through the grace and the mercy and the power of Jesus Christ working in their life that they loved us and they saved us. And they changed the course of our life. That 2.5 months with them, we cried. That picture that was up there, can we just put it back up really quick, Elena? That would be great. This picture was taken the day we left. That was the day we left. Notice the smiles on their faces, right? But we wept as we drove away. It's the best 2.5 months we could have ever imagined. And it was hard. Relationships are hard. But to feel loved and welcomed into someone's home like that, can't explain it. But we are welcomed into a home, into an eternity with our Father. And He will take us with no conditions, with no resume. And if we have one, it can be as dark and decrepit as possible, and He will take us every single time. And He will love us every single day. And many of us in this room have never experienced that before, and it is available to you. At any point you want to ask God, I want to experience your love. It's available. And if you've forgotten that Hesed love, it is right there. He has never left. You are part of His family. You are a part of His home and kingdom forever. And the other thing we take away from that is the example and the call that we have to love our neighbors as ourselves, to show Hesed love to others as we received it from Doug and Joyce. So my question to you is, who can you show Hesed love to? Who can you go above and beyond to? Is it the neighbor? Is it a coworker? Is it a family member who's off and distant? Is it a person that you're at odds with? Is it a person who has wounded you, but you need to forgive and show them and extend them a love that they could never fathom? And that is what changes lives. The church is in such a calamity because of so many things that have gone wrong over the years, and people have come to write it off. And nobody really cares anymore if we follow the rules. That doesn't change a person's life. Nobody cares about that. What changes lives is Hesed love. When people see it and say, wow, that's something amazing. That's something I can get behind. And that's what changes communities. And that's what can change nations. And that's what can change the world. So my prayer for all of us is we know we have it and we give it back out. As Ruth gave back out. Let's go ahead and pray together. Heavenly Father, thank you for your Hesed love in my life. Thank you for people that have loved me. Thank you so much for your faithfulness. And Lord, help me to live it out to others. Help us live that out in our communities, in our families, in our homes, in our neighborhoods. Thank you so much for your sacrifice, and thank you so much for the story of Ruth. Help us to be like this woman, and it's only through the grace and the mercy and the power of you and your Son working through us, giving us grace every time when we fail. We love you, Lord, and we thank you. And it is your name we pray. Amen. We're going to worship right now. And the song that you're about to sing, it says, I love the line. It says, though the storms may come and the wind may blow, I remain steadfast in you. And it goes on to say this, great is thy faithfulness. So now let us celebrate and sing together the faithfulness and the loyalty of God and his love for each and every one of us in this room, no matter where we've been, no matter what we have done, for we have a home with him.
Just what you say. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass.
Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me.
God from ancient days, though the earth may pass away, your word remains the same. Yeah, your history can prove there's nothing you can't do. You're faithful and true. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness
I hope as we go today, we will celebrate the faithfulness of God in our lives, to know that we are loved no matter what, to share that love out in extraordinary ways to those who need it around us. As you go, a couple things to remember. First, I don't think we said this earlier, Wednesday night we have midweek here. We're trying to do it outside, but there's this thing called rain that we've just learned about around here, so it might be a little bit of what, who knows. If it's outside, if it rains, we'll be inside, but just come out and enjoy life with us Wednesday night. And if there's anything going on in your life that you need prayer for, please come on up. We would love to pray with you as well. Happy 4th of July, Independence Day. May you celebrate safely and well. Good day, everybody.